Hello, brilliant and embodied souls. My name is Kim. Welcome back to my channel. It has been a minute. I apologize for being away. That was not my intention, but life happens. So let's do a catch up, and then I want to share with all of you the decks that are really calling to me as we move out of summer and transition into early fall energy. I've got some really awesome decks lined up to work with for the remainder of September. And then there's so many decks that are calling to me as we move into the darker portion of the year. I got a couple of decks at the end of spring as we were moving into summer that just didn't feel right to work with back then. So as we move into the darker months, I've got a lot of juicy, delicious practice planned for myself. But I'm getting ahead. I'm skipping ahead. We'll get to all of that in due time. But first and foremost, a catch up. Where have I been? What have I been up to? And then we'll talk summer, fall transition decks. So I was away from YouTube and a lot of my spiritual and tarot practice for several weeks now for three factors. Number one, I went to visit a dear friend of mine who lives in Vancouver, and I was spending a lot of time with her. So my tarot practice, my spiritual practice, kind of went out the window. Coming back from that visit, I ended up getting a cold. I just did not have the energy. I felt so flat, so tired. My voice was really messed up. And as many of you know, I'm a therapist, a somatic psychotherapist. So I use my voice a lot, even though I'm doing a lot of body-based interventions with folks. And I was really down and out. And then I had more travel because I went to Italy with my husband. It was such a fantastic trip. It was the trip of a lifetime because we went to northern Italy, which is the birthplace of tarot. At least, that's what the historical record points to at this point in time. Milan, the Visconti Forza tarot, right? Like those are some of the places and early, patrons who contributed to what we have today, what we know as tarot today. I went to the Visconti Forza Castle, Fortress in Milan. It was so cool to see a touch point, a historical touch point for something that I love. In going to Italy, I definitely checked out, different places, and I didn't get to go to all of the tarot tourist places that I could have, but like going to the Visconti Forza Castle was really awesome. I did end up picking up two decks, which I will talk about in another video that I'm so excited about. I cannot wait to work with. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. I will talk about those decks in the near future. I want to work with them, get to know them before I share them with all of you. But needless to say, I went to a metaphysical tarot shop in Milan. I think it's called Tarot World, but in Italian. So if you're in Milan, if you're in Europe, I will try to put a link to their website and their contact details, because it was a mecca of decks. It was so, so awesome. They had a lot of decks that I wasn't even familiar with. They had a lot of things that I was, there was plenty of like mass market decks within the shop, but there was a lot of out of print gems, a lot of, again, like decks that I don't know, I'm not entirely familiar with. So I had so much fun visiting that shop. We also went to the Dolomites, which are the mountains in the north of Italy. We did all kinds of hiking. We went to the Lakes District, and we also went to Cinque Terre. Everything was so beautiful. The Italian culture, oh my gosh, just so beautiful. The emphasis on hospitality, slowing down, enjoyment, pleasure, sensuality. I fell in love. I fell in love. I so hope that I'm able to go back, because it was one of my top trips that I have ever taken. So good. So I've been away. I've been very busy, and then, just not feeling all that great. I'm a little like at this particular moment because of jet lag, but I really wanted to come back into my tarot practice, and that means talking with all of you. That means being here with all of you, and I'm feeling really good about that. In being away, in taking a step out of some of my normal practices and routines, I've been able to think about and consider what I want to be doing to close out the rest of this year. So I'm thinking, in terms of like what I want to be doing here on the channel, but also in terms of, my daily practice. I do have a daily practice that includes tarot as well as devotion to Hecate, and meditation and visualization work that I do. So again, like I took a break from all of that, which means I get to consider what is really vital and what is not. Some things that I've concluded about what is vital is, I'm not going to change how I approach my daily tarot practice. Like that just feels like really lush. It feels very alive right now. Tarot is going so well. What I've realized in my relationship with Hecate, though, is that things are really starting to change. There's a new chapter beginning, and I don't know what that looks like in entirety. I have hints. I've got some indications of where our relationship is going, but it's too early days to really talk with all of you about that. I'm sharing some of this because I think we all can use vacation time, sick time, when we aren't in the day-to-day. That gives us a break, that opens a portal to rethink, consider, reflect what works, what doesn't. So what I want to say about what isn't working now in the devotional work, the magical work, the Hecatean magic and spirituality that I engage in, what isn't working about that is actually following what others have put out. I am being invited by her to really transform and personalize and get creative, get innovative with our relationship. what does that look like? Again, I'm not prepared to really talk about that yet. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. And in all honesty, right, I haven't really talked a lot about my work with Hecate here on this channel. Like some of, I've mentioned her. She's in the ether here, but that too is becoming clear to me that I want to start being more explicit, more transparent, more out there about what I'm into and what that can mean for other folks who are looking for inspiration, other people who engage with her. I do actually enjoy listening to other people who have relationships with her, whether, it's podcasts or books or here on YouTube. So I may become one of those voices. We shall see. On to the decks. First T. Also, check out the sticker. Love it. This is from Dark Horse Coffee in Lake Tahoe. They are a really fun, magical, the people who own the shop are magical practitioners. At least that's what it seems based off of the decor and some of the graffiti in the bathroom. So I think it was really fun to support businesses that are owned and operated by like-minded people. Yes, decks. I keep saying that. The first, what's really, really calling me right now is this perfect pair, and that is the Tarot of Mystical Moments, which is a oldie but a goodie, and then the Dream Song Oracle. These go so well together. I am loving this combination. I procured both of them recently, even though Tarot of the Mystical Moments has been out for quite some time. When I first saw this deck, I didn't think it was for me. I love surrealist decks. I love dreamy decks. I love mystical, whimsical decks. So you would think this would have been right up my alley, but it was not. Initially, I was turned off by the historical fashions. The people in this deck didn't draw me in. But I'm noticing a shift in the aesthetic I'm drawn to right now. I'm feeling called away from contemporary, modern types of decks and wanting to work with decks that feel timeless, that feel otherworldly. And maybe that's because there's so much angst, horror, sadness, grief circulating collectively and personally because of the work that I do. I am looking for a little bit of escapism. I can admit to that. So decks that offer that otherworldly fantasy setting are really feeling good to me. Is that bypassing, is that, escapism? Probably. But I'm just trying to hang in there, okay? I need to take care of myself. I need to find resource. And my spiritual practice, my tarot practice, they resource me. They nourish me in the wonder. And then when I'm nourished by, the sweetness, the evocativeness, the magic, of a deck like this one, you know, then I can like come back into the game. I can show up for people, you know, I can call my representatives, you know, I can sign petitions, I can go to protests, you know, do some of the things that are required of me. I'm not going to say anybody else, you know, at this time. So this is nourishing me, you know, and the voice of this deck is presenting itself to me, you know, slowly but surely. It's very chatty. It can be a little spicy, you know. The guidebook has excellent reversed meanings. So if you work with reversals, this is a fantastic deck to learn reversals with or work with reversals. I tend not to use reversals, and I've been debating, like, do I use reversals with this deck because of the gems of messages in the guidebook, or do I just go with what I see, work super duper intuitively with the images? That's my dilemma with this deck at present. I'm leaning more towards ditch the guidebook, even though it's good. It is a solid guidebook, and just work with the images because they're really powerful. These are really evocative, powerful images. The voice of this deck is a very strong seer. This is a powerful psychic. I mean, if this deck was a person, this would actually be like a true psychic person. I get immense amounts of information when I drop in with the images, like see the interplay of the images with each other and the interplay of this deck with the dream song. So let's take a look at that. So this is both of these are US game, mass market. This is another Angie Sullins deck. You know, she's got quite a few decks out there these days. I mean, she's kind of like the new Colette Baron-Reid as far as I can tell, or like the new Alana Fairchild. So she's doing all kinds of like guidebooks. You know, different artists work with her. And I like her guidebooks. They're succinct. You're not getting the Alana Fairchild like brain dump, like, you know, her I like some of her decks, but a lot of them are just like, a lot of the guidebooks are really just over the top for me and not all that useful. And there's a lot of like muckety muck in some of her guidebooks. You know, sometimes the same with like Colette Baron-Reid. You know, Angie Sullins tends to be more succinct, more to the point, and I like that. I also really adore these images. There's something, you know, whimsical, folksy, earthy, but dreamy, all wrapped up together. You know, you can see from the quality of the artwork in the dream song that these two decks would go very, very well together. There's a lushness for me in both of these decks that speaks to the end of summer, you know, harvest time. There's a lot of fruit coming to bear. We still have some flowers. You know, there's still a lot of verdant, green, growing essence. But that is like tapering off, right? The trees are starting to transition into their colors. You know, we are moving into less and less light. You know, this deck is a touch moody. It does speak to that dusk and dawn. You know, the dark that whispers to us in September, right? We're not fully in it, but you know, we're moving there. So this is just a really strange and ethereal deck that does speak to this transitional and liminal time of the year, at least for me. And they really like to go together. As I said, you know, both are newer in my collection, so I haven't developed really deep relationships with either of them yet. So I can't say too much more about their voices at this juncture. Okay, let's talk about my pumpkin spice deck. This is the Solero Oultto Tarot. This is, I call it, you know, I call it my pumpkin spice deck because it is just full of browns and golds and yellows and oranges. It is so autumnal. And here in Northern California, things get really brown at the end of summer, moving into fall. The rain has not yet come here, so things are crispy and dried out and in a way like a little dull. So this deck actually feels like very right to me, even though, you know, maybe in other places this would be a later fall deck. Like where I live, this is a September deck just because of all the browns and golds and etc. This is a very sweet deck. It's very playful, again, whimsical. I go to another world with this deck as well. The creatures are hilarious. They're so cute. I just feel like I'm stepping into a children's story, but a children's story that has some like edge. You know, this is the type of deck that initially says, "Oh, I'm cute and I'm sweet," and "Oh yeah, you're gonna get ooey gooey nice messages," but there is something a little sinister within this deck. There's something a little creepy. You know, this is a good card. This sun card, I mean, like, what is this creature? This is not a human. It's pretending to be human, but it's not. That's what I mean. There's lots of unique voices and perspectives within this deck, even though it is very rooted in the RWS tradition. It reads RWS, you know, but there's a lot of like really fun, playful, but again, like kind of creepy aspects to this deck, right? Like this Four of Cups, like this person is being hugged by Chewbacca's cousin, you know? I love it. I just love it. Yeah, and you know, in terms of its messages, it's a very clear reader. It's chatty. You know, it wants to play with you. It's a very inviting deck. You know, there is something kind of maybe like a little Halloween, at least for me, you know, playing dress up. Let's you know, trick or treat together. Even though that's later fall vibes. But I don't know, like I love the fantasy world that is developed in this deck, and it's really calling to me here and now. Oh boy. It's such a fun one. And I'm really glad that it is in my collection. Let's talk about another oracle deck, and that is the Magical Spirit Oracle. This is a rock pool, mass market, Solero Oultto indie, if you don't know. This is, I don't know, when I was like looking at my decks, I'm like, oh, what do I want to be working with right now? This jumped out. This feels very back to school for me. We've got some young people depicted. I don't know, this speaks to like my inner teenager for some reason. If there was a deck that represented me, or, you know, I have several decks that I would say like represent who I was as a teenager. This is one of them. This feels like very youthful, adventurous, spirited. The voice of this deck is young. You know, are there lessons that this deck has not learned yet? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You know, this deck has kind of a rudimentary understanding of the world and spiritual practice and things like that. But, you know, I actually like having decks that feel a little bit more adolescent, you know, because I work with a lot of adolescents in my practice, actually. I love the energy of youth. And I want to stay connected to that energy. And this deck helps me do that. It also like takes me back to when I was a teenager, and I'm gonna like, you know, kind of date myself, you know. I remember like downloading music off of like my crappy internet connection, and, you know, just anticipating hearing that music, like reading Rolling Stone, like reading Spin magazine, you know, which is like, of course, defunct. I get like kind of rock and roll vibes from this deck as well. It feels like it just wants to jump on a motorcycle and like ride off to find rainbows. You know, can we find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? You know, can we smoke a bunch of weed and see really cool shit at the bottom of the Cheeto bag, you know? That's kind of the energy of this particular deck. And it feels like back to school. You know, because even though I'm not going back to school, you know, that's not the phase of life that I'm in right now. There's still like that energy circulating right now, you know, because of, again, like the teen clients that I work with. I don't exclusively work with teens, but I always have space in my practice for young people. I love working with them. Okay, the last two decks are both tarot decks, and I'm gonna start with another oldie but a goodie, and then talk about a very exciting deck to conclude this video. So I finally, you know, joined the party. That's kind of the theme of this year thus far in terms of my tarot collecting. I've been drawn to decks that I never thought I would be drawn to, and the Antique Anatomy is one of those decks. I never in a million years thought I would buy this deck. Like truly. You know, the whole Victorian seance thing is not really my cup of tea. Or so I thought. But that's actually what I'm noticing is I'm interested in a little bit more nostalgia these days. I'm feeling called to more gothic kinds of energies, more reflection upon ancestor work, you know, where I've come from, learning more about my people. And this deck is part of that work that I'm currently engaged in. And I'm just really looking forward to actually working with this deck more. This is one of the decks that I bought earlier in the year and it didn't feel right to work with. So I've been waiting to work with it. And now is the time. This feels very of the moment because we've got the flowers, the colors, you know, we're pulling in the verdant, life force energy of plants, juxtaposed with the bones and the potions and the curio cabinet accoutrement that is depicted in this deck. And that feels very fall to me. That feels like a nice combination of the energies at present. So stay tuned on that. I've only just begun to pick up on the energy of that deck. And as I said, I've been using it quite a bit to connect with ancestors, but it's kind of early days in terms of our relationship. And then finally, I have the Tarot de Aux Arcs. This is a really special Marseille-inspired deck. It is painterly. It is unique. This is my kind of Marseille. I am not necessarily drawn to classic Marseille decks at this juncture, but this has called to me for a really, really long time, and it finally felt right to purchase it. The colors are so of the now, right? We've got all of these oranges, reds, some touches of green. It is a very modern yet classic feeling deck. This deck also feels very timeless, and it reads so well because of the color story. When I have a big spread going with this deck, which you can do, this is the kind of deck to do a giant tableau or, like a 10 card reading and not, a lot of cards. This deck really, really shines when you can see the flow of the colors, the line work coming together. You get a really compelling story with the number cards. It's a really great reader, especially if you are looking for, like strong divinatory decks. I feel like Marseille decks actually play into divination really, really well, because you get neutrality and messages come through within the neutrality of pip decks. So I've been having a lot of fun exploring this deck and coming back to some of what I've learned about Marseille decks. I have studied at this juncture. I have studied RWS, I've studied Thoth, and I have studied Marseille. Each of them somewhat, then I move on to the next, and then I kind of like to blend and weave the traditions together to create my version of the tarot. So this is an opportunity, working with this deck is an opportunity to deepen into my Marseille practice. I love this High Priestess. She is gorgeous, right? So good. It has been such a delight catching up with all of you. Let me know what decks you are working with as we transition from summer into fall. I would love to know down in the comments. And I will see you all in the next video. Till then, sending you all kinds of love. Bye for now.